We're going to start by talking about how we classify triangles. And there are two ways that we do that. First of all, we do it by angles, and secondly, we do it by sides. When we're talking about angles, if it has 3 acute angles, then we call it an acute triangle. If we have one obtuse angle, an angle that is larger than 90 degrees, then that is called an obtuse triangle. And if it has one right angle, it's called a right triangle. And if it has 3 congruent angles, we call that equiangular. Equiangular. Equa is like equal, and then angles, so it's equiangular. So that is how we classify by our angles. When we're classifying by sides, if it has 3 congruent sides, we call it equilateral. If it has 2 congruent sides, it is an isosceles triangle. And no congruent sides is a scalene triangle. So if we're talking about sides, we have 3 choices: equilateral, isosceles, or scalene. We're going to talk about how we name our triangles when we're talking about congruence, and we're going to make some congruency statements. So congruency statements. That is when we say one triangle is congruent to another triangle. And just as a reminder, congruent is that symbol that looks like an equal sign with a squiggle over the top of it. Order is really important when we're talking about the congruency of triangles, because in order for triangles to be congruent, that means that all of their angles are the same and all of their sides are the same. We spent the last section mapping with rotations and reflections and translations and keeping those shapes exactly the same but moving them to a new location. That is what we're talking about here. So these are matching, and we need to make sure that we make our statements in the right order. So angle A matches angle D, and we know that because we have one mark here and we have one mark here. We know that angle B is the same as angle E because they each had 2 marks on the angle. And then angle F and C are the same because they have 3 markings on each side. We also know that FE is congruent to BC because of the 2 marks on the side, and ED and AB are the same, and AC and FD are the same. So when we line these up, they should come out to match. So a congruency statement is when I say that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. So as we note, A and D were in the same spot, and B and E and C and F. So the order that we have those written lines up with the angles that are congruent. There are multiple ways that we can write this. So another one would be to say that triangle CBA is congruent to triangle. So if I put C first, I have to put F first. And B was in the middle, so E is in the middle. And A is last, which means that D is last. I can also call this triangle BCA, and say that that is congruent to a triangle. If I started with B, I need to start with E, and C goes to F, and A goes to D. Triangle BAC is congruent to triangle E, and then A goes to D, and C goes to F. I'd like you to figure out then, if you were to say triangle CAB is congruent to something, you fill in this part right here. I'll be checking for that when I check your notes. And then triangle ACB is congruent to blank. You fill in those two pieces looking at the picture. I've given you just a moment to go ahead and do that. I am not going to fill it into the video. I'm going to expect that you do that on your own.